And let's all welcome to the stage contestant number 1 for the Daily Solutions podcast. All right, welcome back. So, Ashkahn.
Yes.
Today's question is, I've heard different things about running the pump while someone is in the tank. Is it safe or not?
Oh, boy. Okay.
So, I'm just going to shoot from the hip here and say I have serious concerns about running the pump when someone's in the tank.
This is, I don't know, maybe we should kind of give some pretext here about this is very much like our opinion. I don't know, we haven't every float tank can be different, and there's subtle things that you can do with the way that your filtration system's set up and your piping and all that can change the answer to this question.
Well, now I feel bad about shooting from the hip so quick is what happened.
Okay. You know, shooting from the hip is part of it. It's part of the game.
All right. So Ashkahn's totally right. There are huge disclaimers that come along with this conversation.
So why? Let's just talk about why it could be a concern, right? So
one of the things that is true about float tanks that isn't necessarily even true about pools and spas and things like that is that the pump tends to be in a lot of float tanks very close to where the inlet is.
So we're basically concerned about someone's hair getting caught in the pump and that having a disastrous result.
And you might have heard of things like entrapment or the Virginia Graham-Baker Act, VGBA, and all of that stuff is more word. What?
It's the Virginia Graham-Baker Pool and Spa Safety Act is the official title.
Sorry. VGBA P and SA.
VGBP ASA.
Yeah.
VGBASPA.
So the deal with that, though, is the idea of getting trapped against suction inlet. Not that your hair is going to get actually entangled in the mechanical parts of a pump, which makes the, I guess, possibility of entrapment or of something going wrong in a float tank, again, one that has the pump so close to where the inlet is, slightly terrifying.
So, yeah, because in pools, they have their pumps, often 20, 30, 40, 100 feet away in piping between where the pump room is and where these kind of inlets are in the pool. So it's just slightly different logic with float tanks. You are floating horizontally in this water. Your head's usually, somewhere right near these things, depending on which way you're floating in the tank. So it's very unlikely, for this to happen would be statistically, pretty crazy, but the consequences are so huge, which is why it makes it kind of a nerve-wracking thing to think about. Were this to happen to someone, it'd be pretty bad.
And I should say, I know of absolutely no one who this has ever happened to. Ever.
No.
I've never.
And you'd have to have 2 feet long hair, and all this, everything would just have to go just right. But at the end of the day, there is, I guess, at least it still seems like a possibility, at least in certain float tanks with certain setups, etc., with all those disclaimers. Which is why it makes us nervous. And we try not to do it, not just try. We have systems set up in our shop to allow us to not run the pump while somebody's in the float tank.
Yeah, and at least at ours, it's, we're in those setups where we have pump systems that are very close to where the inlet is in the float tank. So there is that risk if someone did have a couple foot long hair, then they could get it entangled into the pump system. And so we would rather get someone into a float late than risk rushing the other person out by turning on the pump in the room and risking their hair getting entangled.
Yeah, so for us, that's our general rule. We do not run the pumps while people are in the float tanks, and for that same reason, we don't have our float tank controls on automated schedules either, because we don't want the pump to just always turn on 5 minutes after the music or whatever it is. We want a human being to actively make the decision to turn the pump on every single time the pump runs, and that way they always know to make sure that there's nobody in the float tank and that they're actually kind of in control of the situation.
So it definitely puts some restrictions on the schedule, and we have to do things like pay attention to when showers are going on in the rooms, which is usually our cue that someone's out of a float tank. We use the shower going on.
Yeah.
And we actually have shower sensors now that since we've opened, installed in our rooms that let us know when the different showers go on for our different rooms, so we can pay attention without being big creepers and just kind of listen in the hallway for the various showers to turn on after we hit the music.
And that's like about enough confidence for me. I mean, I guess like technically in some weird scenario, someone could turn the shower on and then go like get back into the float tank and lie back down. But at that point, it just seems so improbable that it's hard to kind of justify making plans around that.
Yeah, and you might encounter, so the other place that you'll hit this other than just me and Ashkahn being paranoid is float tanks, health departments talking to float tank centers and them being paranoid about this exact same thing. We've even talked to health departments that are afraid about someone hopping back in the tank after they've gotten out and showered. And for them, even having a shower indicator might not be enough of a protocol in order to protect someone, right? Sometimes they actually want more extreme measures, like you have to visually see the person or know that they're out of the tank.
Yeah.
So not very common, but that's the level, and it's the exact same reasons that we're scared are the reasons that they get paranoid again, even about someone hopping back in to get their wedding ring out of the float tank or something like that.
So yeah, in a lot of float tanks, this may be a concern, and some with long piping or just kind of different setups, and this kind of same logic may not hold true, but it's at least something to keep in mind and to realize that, it might not just be that you're disturbing someone in the float tank when you're turning the pump on. There may be a kind of serious risk there.
Yeah, is there anything? I still feel bad about shooting from the hip at the beginning. Is there anything else that we need to say here? Disclaimers at the end that we need to get out as well?
Hopefully this will just never happen. It won't be a problem.
And we're just paranoid?
Yeah, that's the ideal world.
All right. Well, if any of you guys have questions of your own you want to send in, go to floatanksolutions.com/podcast, and we will read them there.
Have a good one.